Welcome to the Fantasy Football Game Plan. I'm Judy. He's Quinten. And we are going to do a quick review of Week 5 DraftKings main slate and then jump right into the Week 6 rundown of the main slate. Hit subscribe. Leave us a comment with your favorite plays of the week. We're down to 10 games again this week on the main slate. Some of these are pretty one-sided. It is a tough week, I'm not going to lie. We've got the Texans and Vikings out on bye. And we've got another early London game on Sunday with the Broncos and Jets. And then we've got 2 Monday night games as well. So we've got
Yeah,
Buffalo at Atlanta and then Chicago and Washington.
we're going to have to scrounge up some plays because looking through, they are also getting a little bit more heavy on their prices. We're starting to get those 8,500, 8,400. So we're going to have to find those value plays this week. But let's go ahead and review week 5. So a lot of the players we talked about, I felt like the general theme we were talking through last week was those backup running backs, and those all hit. So we had in the winning lineup, we had Rashad White and Rico Dowdle with his monster game. I was big on Hampton, so that injury kind of sucked, but how'd you do?
Yeah, I did pretty well this week. I almost hit. I was just under 200 points this week. I was all in on Baker Mayfield and Emeka Ibuka and all over that game. That was my game. And I went into this week looking for my game. I want to go back to Tampa Bay, but it's like hard to just turn right back around and go, oh yeah, Emeka Ibuka, you're going to give me 30 points again this week. But I want to. They're at home and they get the 49ers coming in. And I'm always looking for that game where I feel like both sides can push each other and just keep scoring. And that the moment they walk on the field, they have that attitude that we've got to score points and we've got to score points quick. And I feel like that's what happened in Seattle and Tampa Bay, that both teams took the field with that attitude. And so they were delivering. It was that core play of Jonathan Taylor, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Emeka Ibuka, and Rico Dowdle that kind of did well for my lineup last week. There were lots of variations outside of that, and I don't think that you even had to stack your quarterback. There wasn't a quarterback that was way above everyone. There were a lot in that 28 to 32 point range.
Yeah, and one thing I did like to see come through is we talked up the Houston lineup, and it wasn't a clear stacking direction, but Stroud actually came through and delivered on his price. So I had some good lineups on that Houston front last week as well.
He did. Nico let me down. I was kind of surprised that they weren't using Nico as much as I thought they were going to, that they were kind of spreading it out. Were you surprised about the performance by the Commanders' Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt?
Yeah,
31 points against the Chargers.
that kind of came out of nowhere. So he is definitely going to be a viable option moving forward. And especially against the Chargers, they are a beat up team right now. So I think we're going to have to kind of change our expectations moving forward about what we expect from them and what is their defense like, because he showed out against that defense.
He definitely did, and we'll get to that game, but there are a lot of those games where it's like I'm really unsure how this team's going to look going forward, like the Chargers. What about we'll talk about the Bengals right now. So Jamar Chase, he did have a good week. He delivered with 32 points in week 5. How do you feel about Flacco coming in? It looks like we're going to see him this week against Green Bay.
Honestly, I think it might be even worse than what we've seen from Browning. Partly because that offensive line is just a bottom 3 unit in the league right now, and we know Flacco doesn't do well with a bad offensive line. He is a statue out there. That is a 40-year-old man behind one of the worst offensive lines. I don't think it's really going to get any better for the Bengals, especially against the Packers. We'll cover that, but I think Chase was pretty fortunate to get those 2 touchdowns. I mean, he's always a super athlete, so he can take anyone to the house, but I don't think that's going to be very repeatable here soon.
Yeah, I don't either. Let's take a quick look at the top 25 performances from last week, whether they were on the main slate or not. We've got the top 25 here. You can see, the trends. We're seeing Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nakua. They are consistently delivering. Their rankings overall are, top 10, or McCaffrey's not top 10, but he's top 25 basically. And he's been getting stronger as well. Any surprises here on this list are pretty much what you expected.
I think the other thing we're learning too is everyone has an idea of what those defenses and what those defenses are good at. at the beginning of the season, but now we know what are the matchups you actually circle on your calendar for. I need to target my position against this defense. We saw that for running back against Miami. I mean, Rico Dowdle has never been something crazy, and he put up over 200 yards on them. And then same goes for wide receivers against Dallas. That has just been producing week after week, regardless of who that number one is.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we are getting some clarity. This week will be a third through the regular season. Let's jump into this week. So first game that we've got on our main slate is Dallas at Carolina. Dallas is favored by 3.5. Over/under is 49.5. I want to really like this game, but it feels like a trap. I want to stack Bryce Young and T-Mac, but I just don't know that I can go all in on Bryce Young. Coming into this, Bryce Young has to like that the Cowboys have only had one interception all season, and all 5 quarterbacks that have gone against the Cowboys defense have scored at least 24 DraftKings points.
Yeah, I think both quarterbacks are in play here. Dak is definitely the safer option, but what kind of worries me, and Bryce Young popped for a couple weeks at the end of last year during his good stretch, but he was really running the ball, and he had a couple rushing touchdowns. Dallas defense has one of the lowest scramble rates against them right now, and I don't think Bryce naturally is looking to scramble either. So I think it kind of does limit his ceiling, but we don't have a lot of those true mobile quarterbacks on this slate.
Yeah, we don't. Not in situations where I think they're going to actually have to do it, have to use it too much, other than one, but we'll get there. This is one of my favorite games, but let's just jump into the running backs because you have to be circling this game and going, they want to run Rico Dowdle, and the Cowboys definitely want to run Javonte Williams. Their price tag. So Rico Dowdle took a $1,500 jump up this week, and I think Hubbard's going to be out again this week, but no guarantee. But we don't know yet. It seems like DraftKings thinks they know and that he's going to be out this week. So we've got Dowdle at 5,800, and then Javonte Williams at 6,400. Both Dowdle was 35 points and Williams was 30 points last week. Are you just plugging them in?
So I think Rico Dowdle is a fine play. I mean, I don't think we're seeing another one of those 200-yard performances against Dallas. Dallas has been pretty average against the run, and I'm more excited about what they can do in the passing game. I kind of hope that they try to develop Bryce Young's confidence, especially coming off a win, that they can get that going. And one thing that is interesting to me is they activated Jalen Coker off of IR. So he's finally practicing. He was a full practice today. So that tells me like he's kind of going to be ready to go. And Jatavian Sanders was also a limited participant in practice. So maybe if they get those passing options back, that really just helps the general flow of this offense and them sustain drives against a bad passing defense.
It definitely does, and that just makes me like McMillan even more if they get those other pieces back, because he's been out there pretty much trying to do it on his own, and he's delivering average performances, but I think the only way that he, gets to elevate it is with some other people on the field. How about George Pickens?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I like Pickens here. Dak is going to go to his number one wide receiver, and for as long as that's George Pickens, you can plug him in. I think he's going to be a value at his price. I mean, even at 6,800, they did bump him up a little bit, but he is just seeing the workload. He didn't see a crazy amount of targets. He had that big touchdown last week, but I think he's going to get it done against Carolina.
Yeah, they did need him to step up for last week's to beat the Jets. I think they need him here. I think these two teams can push each other and that we can get that magic scoring environment. I don't think we get CeeDee Lamb back this week. He is back to practice, but I think he's going to probably be out another week. That's my assumption when going to George Pickens. Any other names you want to talk about on this list for these two teams that you're considering putting in your lineups?
Yeah, he's still not practicing. The other name I think we have to bring up is Jake Ferguson. He had an amazing week last week with 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions, and 49 yards. And Carolina has always, going back about 2 years, been one of the worst teams against the tight end position in the passing game. So I think he's worth a mention, but I do want to note that a lot of the touchdowns they give up to receiving tight ends is actually that secondary option, kind of more the blocking. Like we saw it with Hunter Long and Jacksonville, but they let like these secondary tight ends. So if you want to take like a long shot on a true punt play, Luke Schoonmaker would be that role. I don't think I'm going to do it, but maybe just more a little hesitation on plugging in Ferguson.
I'm probably off of Ferguson this week. 2 touchdowns last week. I'm going back to the, law of getting back to average, but also his $5,300 price tag scares me. This week I need to pay up at so many other positions that I am looking to go to a Hunter Henry that's down closer to 4K and save some money. So I'm probably not playing Jake Ferguson. If I am playing Jake Ferguson, he's probably my stack with Dak Prescott, and then I'm moving away from Pickens.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's move it on to our next game. Arizona Cardinals at the Indianapolis Colts. Indy's favored by 6.5, and the over-under is 47.5. This is the first of our lopsided games. I've got no idea how this game gets to 47.5 points in Indianapolis. The Colts have been beating up on bad teams, and the Cardinals like to find ways to lose.
Man, but this just feels like one of those spots. We just watched the Cardinals have one of the worst losses maybe this past decade and just hand the game to Tennessee. And this just feels like one of those reminders that how unpredictable the NFL is, and it's a week by week league, and that maybe they get the upset here. I don't know. Crazier things have happened. But like you said, the Colts are beating up on those bad teams. So they might get 33 by themselves because that's the minimum they've got against the Titans, Raiders, Dolphins, and those matchups. So if we think that the Cardinals belong in that group, then they're probably going to get 33 themselves. And then we're just asking the Cardinals to get a couple touchdowns to get to that over.
I think the meltdown last week by the Cardinals against the Titans and knocking me out of my survivor pool is clouding my judgment, and I can't see past that. I can't see the Cardinals like doing anything in this game because I'm just so angry about last week's game.
The weirdest thing is, so last week I liked Harrison. I had a couple lineups with Harrison, and he starts the game with that bomb play, and he just mosses those 2 defenders, looks amazing. It's almost a touchdown. And then they're just like, yeah, you're good. That was your play. And like, just ignore him. So
yeah,
he's still, I feel like he's one of those players that's always tempting to me because he's in that 5,500 price range. And you're like, it's Marvin Harrison. Like, I mean, he's that big X wide receiver. He can always get 2 touchdowns on a day. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe the implosion is here.
It might be. I wanted to wake up on Monday morning and have Gannon fired, but that meltdown just didn't need. There were so many things that they had to do wrong for them to lose that game. Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray. I'm out on both. You too?
Yeah, I think you can go an Indy stack in very small field tournaments. Like if you're looking more for those like single entry, very small field, I think the Colts are fine. Probably as you get those larger formats, the worse they become. But if you just want a piece of this game, the Colts are kind of one of those lopsided teams that you can stack.
All right. This smells again of Jonathan Taylor. Can he pull off 30 points 2 weeks in a row?
I think he absolutely can. I mean,
he had 3 rushing touchdowns, but
he had 3 rushing touchdowns, and he should have had a 4th. I mean, they just gave Amir Abdullah like a pity touchdown because they were up so much against his old team. I think they're going to be dominant on the ground. I think they're going to be ahead for a majority of the game.
I think that's my problem. At 8,500, I need him to score 40 points to pay for himself in this week where I want a lot of players in that $6,500 range. So I think I'm going to be out on Jonathan Taylor this week. I can't. Last week I could just stack everybody in there that I wanted somehow, and this week the salaries are in a place I can't do that.
Yeah, I think my biggest hesitation with Jonathan Taylor isn't a knock on him, but it's when I'm looking at those prices, I say, is what I'm expecting from Josh Jacobs, who we'll talk about later, that much different?
Yeah, and the price is there. Michael Carter got a big $1,300 price bump, and I don't think they're going to run well against the Colts. Let's just probably move on to this game. Anyone else you want to mention?
No, I think it's a good note that Michael Carter was the clear lead back for the Cardinals. We just don't think it's going to be a good game script, but maybe moving forward, he'll be an option. DeMarcado had that big run, but I don't think he's getting any more touches with that fumble on the 1 yard line. So Carter's probably the only running back you can go to of those two, but there's better options.
Yeah, and then there's better options at wide receiver. Tyler Warren's going to do great things, but he's expensive as well.
Yeah, Tyler Warren kind of feels locked in for a floor of 11 points and a ceiling of like 15.
Yeah,
So he's a safe option, but I like the
not a
cheaper tight
tourney
ends.
play. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks are favored by 3, over under 47.5. This feels like my game. I think, I just love the Bucks, so I'm always wanting to back them when I can cuz Baker Mayfield's fun to watch no matter who his wide receivers are on the field. I'm not sure how the 49ers keep getting this done. I was surprised by their performance last week against the Rams and winning that game. But I like this game. This is the game where when they walk on the field, yes, I do think both sides think they have to score points and not just stop the other team from winning or from scoring.
It is weird though, because these are the two teams that are just like winning. Like you're watching the game, I feel like they're losing the entire game, and then they somehow find a way to win. They have Tampa Bay as a 3-point favorite, but I would take the spread. Tampa Bay is barely winning these games. I think they have 4
Yeah.
last drive, game-winning drive plays, and then we saw the 49ers pulling it out with all these injuries. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if this was like a 2017 game. I'm just hoping that the 49ers are healthy enough to keep it a game, because we know that whatever the 49ers score is, I mean, just add 2 to 3 for Tampa Bay's score.
For Baker. So do you want
Uh-huh.
Baker or Mac Jones? It looks like we're going to get Mac Jones again this week, I believe. I don't think we're getting Purdy back yet, maybe next week, but Mac Jones, he took a beating. At least it was a Thursday night game, so he's going to get, extra time to prepare for this game. But it was rough for him. He looked really good. Both of these quarterbacks over 25 points last week, and Mac Jones is only 5,600.
Yeah, 5,600 just seems too much for Mac Jones, especially for a banged up offense that doesn't have all their wide receivers. At least give me the healthier wide receiver core where Godwin's starting to get back into form. Emeka Ibuka has looked great, and we're still not going to see Bucky in this game either, are we?
No Bucky, but Rashad White looks good. And
Yep.
then I think the bigger question comes in on the 49er wide receivers. There's a chance, it looks like a pretty good chance that we might see Juwan Jennings back this week. And he's only 4,800. If Jennings comes back and we don't have Ricky Pearsall and Kittle's still out, then I think Juwan Jennings at 4,800 could be a really good play. It's one of our cheaper options for a wide receiver of that caliber.
Yeah, I like those wide receiver options if there's just one of them. It is going to be something to watch, those injury reports. They're not actually available because they're West Coast right now, but Pearsall has a chance to play in this game. So if we see like a limited participant today's practice, that'll go a long way for his availability on Sunday. And something I want to monitor, his injury typically misses 2 to 3 weeks. It'd be about 2 weeks from that injury. So we'll have to monitor those practice reports.
I like a lot of pieces in this game. I like Christian McCaffrey. We haven't really talked about Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey is involved, especially when they've got wide receivers out. He is really heavily involved in that passing game. He is 8,400, but if you want to compare him to Jonathan Taylor and how much they're going to be pushed, I'm definitely going with McCaffrey and paying up for him.
Also, you and I have as many rushing touchdowns on the season as Christian McCaffrey, and that has to change. So, if the touchdowns actually start coming, especially with this crazy workload, he's due for one of those like 35, 40-point ceiling games.
He definitely is. Yeah. I like him. I like this game. I am stacking this game. It is one that I end up stacking with it. Anyone
I
else
like it.
on the list here? Do you like Kendrick Bourne, who had the big week last week, or Jake Tongas, their tight end?
Yeah, the backup one.
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't think it's going to be too repeatable for Kendrick Bourne. He played with Mac Jones before he's played with him in New England, and we see these wide receivers have blow up spots. I'm not going to chase it going into the next week.
Let's move on to the Seahawks at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville's favored by 1, and the over-under is 46.5. Trevor Lawrence came through in week 5 with their win over the Chiefs, but I'm not feeling a repeat performance, are you?
No, I mean, those 2 rushing touchdowns are not really textbook when you think of Trevor Lawrence. Sam Darnold, on the other hand, has looked amazing. And so he had 4 passing touchdowns last week. That was kind of the true ceiling. I don't know if he's actually going to have that much. We know this team wants to run the ball. They just haven't really been as effective as they've wanted to be in the rushing game. And especially with how good Darnold and Jason have been, they've been kind of shifting more to that passing attack.
They have. The run game has been a big surprise for me with Ken Walker and now Zach Charbonnet. That, they've tried one, they've tried the other, they've tried sharing, and it just hasn't been there for them. It has a little bit. It's been there, but their defense is letting the other team score. They let Tampa Bay put the points up, so now they've got to use JSN more than they want to. I look at what Jacksonville has allowed. If I look at the points they've allowed to quarterbacks, it's been, up there. They even let Jake Browning have 20 points against them and Brock Purdy 23. So can Sam Darnold do it? Yeah, he can probably do it. And he's only 5,400, which seems too low. The Jaguars are giving up the points. In my head, they're not. But even Patrick Mahomes last week had 30 points against the Jaguars. I think Sam Darnold can repeat it. And if he does, then JSN's going with him.
That's why I'm kind of puzzled on some of these prices. And I was hesitant to be in on Mac Jones because Mac Jones is 5,600. Why is Mac Jones more expensive than Sam Darnold in this spot? I like Darnold.
Question.
If you want these mid 5,000 quarterbacks, I don't really want to pay up this week because there are some really good plays that are expensive elsewhere. So I think Sam Darnold, especially on just a skinny stack with JSN, we know he's going to be the target leader. I'm fine with that. I'm staying away from both these Seattle running backs. I think just both their price tags. I mean, 6,100 for Ken Walker is too much for a part-time player.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm staying away from both of them as well. I do like Travis Etienne, though, on the Jaguars side. They clearly want to go to him. He is their clear back, and he is 5,900. He had a down week last week because they were in that game with Kansas City, and they were both scoring. And so he wasn't relied on as much, but do you see him having a big role in this game?
Yeah, and I think he's actually been very effective in his touches too. It just didn't bounce his way for the touchdowns. I mean, Trevor Lawrence got 2 of them, and also when they were scoring, it was these 2-minute drills, which is just really hard to get the rushing touchdowns in those opportunities. So I think we should have a bounce back. I think he's established. He's the best option. He's very effective in that rushing attack for Jacksonville.
Yeah, I like him as a piece of my lineup, but I'm not really stacking this one. How about Brian Thomas Jr.? We keep waiting for him to have that big game. Can this one be it?
I don't think
Can
it is.
he have? Yeah.
I haven't seen that ceiling with Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, even going back to last season, the mesh between him and Trevor Lawrence just doesn't seem to be there. The more interesting piece is actually Travis Hunter. I thought he flashed a couple times during that game against Kansas City, and then Britton Strange got put on IR. I think Travis Hunter is kind of their movable piece around.
Mm-hmm.
We saw when there was cornerback injuries, he played more on the defense, and I'm curious now that there's some injuries in the wide receiver core with Britton Strange if he's going to play more on offense.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what gets delivered in this game and what just stalls. I feel like this is a stalling game.
I agree. I kind of like some Sam Darnold JSN stacks, and that's about it.
Yeah, I could be talked into it. All right, let's move on to the New England Patriots at the New Orleans Saints. New England's favored by 3.5, and the over-under is 45.5. The Patriots are coming off that big win in Buffalo. I don't think this is my game, but it's still pretty interesting. Drake May's up to 5,900, and again, Drake May is costing more than Sam Darnold or Mac Jones, and that doesn't seem right.
He has been very good, though, and he does scramble a little bit, so I'm fine with the $5,900 price tag for Drake May. New Orleans isn't really a tough defense, I think he's a viable play here. I am Spencer Rattler also can keep this game competitive. He hasn't looked bad. I mean, he's not really turned the ball over that much. I was kind of targeting him with defenses earlier in the league, but he's been pretty safe. And I think New Orleans is reaching their goal of not embarrassing themselves this year.
They are reaching that goal, and I don't hate Spencer Rattler, especially at his $4,700. But there are other plays that I do like. What else is there here that you like on the Patriots side or on New Orleans? Is like just confusion for me. Let's go through the running backs. I'm a little all over the place. Let's go through the running backs for New Orleans because today on Wednesday there was news that broke that Alvin Kamara hurt his ankle in practice and he
Wow.
magically went to questionable. So if he's out, Kendre Miller,
I kind of
you
like
got to
Kendra Miller.
like
I
some
mean,
Miller.
yeah, so we've also seen the Saints trust him more and more in that rushing attack. The past couple weeks, I mean, even before the Kamara injury, he was their leading ball carrier last week. He had 41 yards. He had the majority of carries. So I think if Kamara's out, he's going to step full time into that role. That would be pretty exciting for him to see what he can do. He's looked pretty good. And I think we would be getting a discount at $4,700. I mean, he had a slight price bump, but if there's an injury, you never really want to see those later week injuries for veteran players. That kind of is a red flag. So something to monitor later in the week. The
Definitely.
Patriots running backs. We have no Antonio Gibson anymore. It's down to two. But will we ever see the utilization of Travion Henderson that we actually want?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think Ramondre Stevenson is actually going to have to get hurt, it feels like, to see more Travion Henderson. All the fumbles didn't do it. They did it very temporarily,
Yeah.
but
I mean, he's
then
fumbling. He averaged like 2 yards a carry last game, and he was still giving the goal line work.
I'm not going to speculate on whether or not it's Ramondre Stevenson or Travion Henderson. They're both 5,300 and 5,200, and I think there are better options. I'd definitely rather just pick up Kendre Miller if Kamara's out.
Yeah, I think we go back to the rule of no part-time players on our
Yeah,
teams.
no
Um,
part-time players. Not as long as we can get a full-time player for the same cost.
exactly. I do want to bring up Diggs in all of his targets last week. Is that here to stay? He's coming off an ACL injury. It is promising to see that he's kind of ramping up, but his snap count's not changing. It's just kind of the targets.
Last week, I think he just had it out for Buffalo. And he was going to do whatever he needed to do to get open and to catch that ball. So he caught 10 of his 12 targets. I still like his target share and that Drake may trust him and he knows where to look for him. So I do like that in this game. And at 5,800, I don't mind trying to go back to him again. There's no one else on the Patriots that, really stands out for me that is the quality of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I think it's Stephon Diggs and Hunter Henry, and you're getting a majority of that passing attack. I am interested, especially second half of the year. What is Diggs going to look like in this Pats offense?
I'm curious about that. Hunter Henry is kind of my go-to tight end this week at 4,300 in this game that I think is going to be a pretty good game. And that way I'm saving $1,000 and getting a pretty good quality tight end here as well. So he has been my go-to tight end in my lineups. New Orleans wide receivers, Rashid Shaheed or Chris Olave. Do you want to speculate which one's gonna do better this week, or should we
Honestly,
just go no?
I like Olave. We saw that huge bomb 87-yarder touchdown for Shaheed. We know that's not going to be too repeatable, but the targets for Olave are just insane. He is also getting targeted on deeper routes. It's not just these little ones. It's just the little ones that are connecting right now. Him and Rattler just seem a little off. So I'm hoping that given that target share, given their fast pace of play, we do kind of love that too. And
Yeah.
then Patriots are fine, like giving up those kind of quick targets. So I think Olave is fine for his price, just in that PPR format.
I don't mind him. I'm surprised they dropped him $100 from last week when he got 11 targets. He only caught 7 of them, but he still saw a cost decrease. All right,
Yep.
let's move on to the Rams at the Ravens. The Los Angeles Rams are favored by 7.5. 44.5 is the over under. I really want to love this game because, we should be going all in on the Rams. They should walk all over the Ravens. But do they actually need to do anything to win this game?
Yeah, I think first the Rams should be a little bit heavier favorites. I mean, 7.5. Houston has not really done anything on offense in a year. Finally, like, let them put up 40 points. So we know the Rams are going to be kind of pissed off after losing last Thursday night. I think they're in a great spot here to bounce back, but I think it is probably we might see the backups in the fourth quarter, which is the worry.
I think so too. This isn't Matthew Stafford has to try to outscore the 49ers and puts up 30 points. Maybe it's Williams, his
Yeah,
night. I don't know. We've been seeing a lot more of Corum as well, and maybe Williams doesn't have to play all 4 quarters, and that's definitely my worry here.
I like Kyron Williams in the spot. He's probably my favorite play, just of how bad the Ravens defense and how repeatable I think it's going to be from last week. Last week, Nick Chubb looked great on the ground for the Texans, and they run basically identical schemes. So Houston's offensive coordinator came from the Rams. They run the exact same concepts, and I think Kyron's probably going to do more in those touches when he has those gaps. He's probably my favorite play here against this Ravens defense.
Yeah, I think Kyron's the only play that I'm leaving this game with. The Ravens, Zay Flowers had a few more targets last week. It just still looks bad, and the defense is just so bad until Lamar's back there. Even when Lamar's back, he didn't look good. But
Lamar's going to give us
any,
some fun fantasy games with this defense, though, because like it's going to be 40-40 if they win.
that's true. Well, maybe we'll get him back next week.
I did see that Cooper Rush might not be the starter. They did bring up Snoop Huntley, who they're going to have to decide who is playing for Baltimore. I don't think it really changes the outcome here.
I know.
We do also have Puka. We know that even if the starters are only playing 3 quarters, Puka is going to get his. It's just 8,700. Are you having any lineups with Puka this week?
I'm not. I've snuck Devonte Adams into a few because at 2,000 less, I can fit him in and still get part of this game if they are passing, but I haven't used Puka at all because of his cost and the lack of need to score points in this game. You can talk me into putting Adams in. How about Derrick Henry? $800 less this week. Any interest?
No, I don't think so. It's just not been effective, and they're getting stuffed a majority of these carries. They're also just never in a positive game script. I think the Rams are going to show up, especially extended rest and off a loss. So I like them to show up early, and that immediately puts Derrick Henry in the hole. And I think we'll
Yeah.
probably see Justice Hill and Keith Mitchell on the field.
I feel like we're just skimming, some of these games, but there's just so little in them that it's like, yeah, just cross them off and move on. Let's
I
move
mean,
on.
building lineups this week is kind of tough. Like, there's a lot of ugly games.
There are. Let's move on to another ugly game. Cincinnati Bengals at the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay is coming off their bye, and the Bengals are getting Joe Flacco. Green Bay is favored by 14 and a half, and the over-under is 44 and a half.
This is also, I will say on this game, I am kind of liking to attack the Green Bay side. I just think everything lines up here in their favor. They have the additional rest off the bye, they're at home, and then they're against this Bengals defense. So it really comes down to me of what pieces I want to play. I think an interesting option, I think most people will tend towards Jacobs, but if you wanted to attack the passing game, Jordan Love could easily have 3 passing touchdowns in this game if he wants to. So I think that's an interesting way to play in tournaments is stacking up the passing game and avoiding Jacobs in this.
I can't stack this passing game. You're just like guessing at what wide receiver it might be this week, and they haven't looked particularly good. I guess they get to come out here and practice, and so that was kind of one of our theories last week was in the Houston game that finally the Texans got to practice against a weak defense, and we did see that Stroud did his practicing and he looked good. So that could be Love in this game. Everyone's just pricey, and I don't know.
They are pricey. The one kind of bump I want to mention is rookies after their bye week is typically when we see the ramped up involvement, is when the team starts trusting them a little bit more. So if that's the case, Matthew Golden would be that piece to bring along in the passing attack. He hasn't really shown out this year, but he is getting those deep targets. They're just not really connecting so far. So maybe against the Bengals defense, that's going to look a little bit better. Look how it does in practice. Like you were saying, he's probably the only piece on this passing attack that I'm actually looking at. Him and actually Tucker Kraft, too. I think Tucker Kraft is a good spot if you want to pay up a tight end. He's kind of in the middle range.
He is in that middle range. Any interest? The Bengals are obviously going to be trailing. Any interest in any of the Bengals? Can we go to Jamar Chase? He dropped $100. $7,700 does seem like a bargain for Jamar Chase. Do you like anything on the Bengals side?
I really don't. We talked about Flacco at the beginning, but if it is Flacco, I don't think it's going to be better. Lambeau has just been a tough place to play for any quarterback, and I don't really like the backup quarterbacks here for Cincy against with a bad offensive line.
And the Packers coming off the bye week. They've got to be healthy rolling into this game.
Have some discussion about Josh Jacobs. How do you feel?
Okay.
How much have you been playing him in your lineup so far?
I haven't.
Really?
Yeah.
I think for me this week, it's hard to not just lock in Kyren and Josh Jacobs. They feel so safe, those heavy favorites, and I want a piece of those attack. I mean, even if they're some garbage time at the end and they are playing it, I think they're going to be a critical reason of why they're building these leads.
I am worried again that he could sit the whole fourth quarter and not be part of this game because they're just literally up so much and they're going to let some other players get some game experience.
I do see that.
At 7,300, I can't not have you in that game for a quarter.
Yeah, I feel like he's kind of my pivot off of Jonathan Taylor. I feel like him and Jonathan Taylor line up pretty identical. They're both lopsided favorites at home, and you get a save $1,000, so he works a lot better in lineups. And even if he plays 3 quarters, he could do what Taylor did last week and have 3 rushing touchdowns. They give that 4th to Emmanuel Wilson. He can pay it off. So I think I'm still plugging him in. I'm fine with that price tag. He works a little bit better in lineups.
Yeah, I don't hate him, but I'm also not using Jonathan Taylor in any of my lineups this week as a heavy favorite. Like you said, I like Josh Jacobs better than Jonathan Taylor this week, but there are those options, the Javonte Williams, and there's so many of those that I do like this week that I have been going a lot of Javonte Williams and Rico Dowdle and Devon Achane, who we'll get to here in a minute.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, well, let's go on to that game. So we've got the Los Angeles Chargers at the Miami Dolphins. Chargers are favored by 4.5. Wow, I did not read that correctly, I guess, the first time when I went through this. Chargers favored in Miami. I know there's the Chargers and they are the better team, but that loss of Omarion Hampton has me sad and scared. The over-under is 43.5. How do you like this game?
I don't like this game. This is probably one game I'm fading from both sides. This is not the Chargers that we saw at the beginning of the season. This is kind of a shell of that. And the one thing that Miami's defense has been able to do is get pressure, and I think they will be living in that backfield a lot. I also think the Chargers defense is really good. So I think it just sets up for both offenses to kind of fail here. And I'm kind of staying away from it. But man, I am just so sad about what Hampton could have done against this Miami defense that just let Rico Dowdle run for 200 yards on them.
I am definitely sad that we're not going to get to see that. And then they bumped up Vidal and Haskins $1,000 each. So they're both $5K. I don't want to guess which one it's going to be this week. We didn't really have a clear winner out of last week's game after Omarion Hampton went down. Let's take a step back. I know you're already on this is a dud kind of game. So you're out, I'm guessing, on Tua and Justin Herbert in this game.
I am, yeah.
I feel like this game could get there. I think it's the injuries that have us dragging this game down. If we had Omarion Hampton and we had Tyreek Hill, this would be a whole different discussion. We would be all excited about this game. But we've seen other teams do it, the Buccaneers, the 49ers, without their stars, and they just go to the next person. You're thinking this one isn't it. I have been playing some Achane. He is up $500, but after Giving the Chargers giving up 31 points to the Commanders, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I'm kind of willing to go that this game has the potential to be that explosion game. He's 7,800, so now he's in that neighborhood of Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor. But if they have to rely on Achane to do more, he becomes so heavily involved in that passing game that I like the potential here for it to get there.
And we know we're going to see a bunch of checkdowns to Achane. He had 7 targets and 6 receptions last week. So I think he is a viable play here. I think it's just the injuries that matter to me the most are the offensive line for the Chargers, because this is a weak Miami defense, I think, as a whole. I think if we had either Joe Alt or Slater in this game, then I would be stacking up the passing attack for the Chargers. But they've been able to get pressured. That's about the only thing they've been able to do. And just they're on their like 5th and 6th string, or 5th and 6th tackles right now. So I think it's going to be rough. And then I think they're going to try to run the ball to try to mitigate that. But I see them splitting carries between Vidal and Haskins. I don't think there's going to be a clear number 1 here.
Yeah, I don't expect that there will be either. And I'm not real clear what, we'll see from the Chargers side. But I like the Chargers. They've got a great coach in Harbaugh, so maybe he'll dial something up that surprises us. But I do just like the dependability of Achane.
What do you think about Waddle? I mean, it did look like he was stepping into that number 1 wide receiving role. He had a great game last week. You think that continues?
I think it has the potential to continue, along with Darren Waller. They like going to him as well. I do like all of the pieces, oddly enough, in Miami, even though I was throwing Mike McDaniel under the bus after like 2 games. I'm going to go back to him now.
Yeah, and that's been the main weakness for the Chargers, has kind of been these possession wide receivers. We've seen Courtland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, and Marquise Brown get it done against them before. So I think I would lean towards Waddle instead of Waller this week. Do you have the same read?
I've been playing more Waller than Waddle. I don't mind either of them. It's just kind of been who I have as a choice, and Waddle took that $700 price tag jump, but Waller also took a $500 price tag jump. They're all the Miami players got bumped up. I guess everyone is playing them thinking the same thing. Well, last week they were against the Panthers, and that tends to be highly played, whoever's going against the Panthers. But both of these defenses have given up high scoring games to the opposing offenses. Courtland Sutton also had almost 27 points against the Chargers in week 3. And Deebo Samuel had a great week last week as well, along with the Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I see the potential here. We know that Miami is giving it up as well, and on the running back side and the wide receiver side. That's why this one has potential to be there. It just doesn't, with all the injuries, it drags it down.
This is one of those where I'd be fine playing the backup if it was clear of who it would be. But we saw equal amount of snaps for Haskins and Vidal. I think one of them's going to end up with a rushing touchdown here, but I don't really want to call my shot on which one it is.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's move on to Tennessee Titans, who got their first win at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are favored by 4.5, and over-under is 41.5. I just don't like either of these offenses. I'm kind of out on this whole game. I don't buy into any of it. The Raiders look bad. The Titans somehow won that game, but they don't look good.
Yeah, no. Honestly, I think this game's kind of interesting. It's like, this is one of those games where it's like, maybe we give it a little shine. It looks a little better, and we know these are 2 terrible defenses. That's the plus. That's got to be the selling point. Both these teams have terrible defenses that have just been picked apart on a routine basis. Geno Smith's been turning it over at an insanely high rate, but he's played some hard defenses in the past, and I don't know, maybe it's his bounce back spot here. I kind of like that. I think they're going to have to get Ashton Jeanty involved in this passing game, which makes me excited because I don't think they're going to have a lot of success running up the middle and running between the tackles. But if you get him in space, Jeanty is dangerous. And then I even looked about stacking up Tennessee's passing attack. That's how bad this Raiders defense is. but I just couldn't. I mean, Cam Ward doesn't run. He had his best game last week, and he still didn't have a passing touchdown. So that's not viable. But I am interested in Calvin Ridley, 4,900. Can I sell you on 4,900 for 10 targets, and he had 130 yards last game?
And he didn't have a touchdown.
And he
You
didn't
can
have a
sell me
touchdown.
4,900 for Calvin Ridley. I still like Juwan Jennings at 4,800, $100 less, a little bit more than Calvin Ridley. But you can sell me on Calvin Ridley. I could plug him into a few of the lineups. These teams just make an amazing amount of mistakes. They can't get out of their own way to score any points. And they're better plays.
Yeah. I think Ridley is pretty circled on a lot of my lineups because the one thing that stands out is he excels at zone coverage and beating zone coverage. When he's in snaps against zone coverage, he has about a 25% target share compared to man, where it's about 16%. And the Raiders live in zone coverage. They play it at the highest rate in the league. They got picked apart last week. They get picked apart every week. So I think Calvin Ridley's that play over Io Manor. Io Manor's kind of excelled in man coverage.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been going back and just kind of chasing those targets for Ridley.
All right, I'll buy into Ridley. I'm going to leave Ashton Genty alone for his $6,900 price tag. He has not shown me enough that he's that involved in their game. They just make too many mistakes to justify having anyone that high of a cost on their team right now.
I definitely decided this is not a game you need to stack. It's not going to kill you, but I like that piece.
All right, let's go on to our last game. Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh's favored by 5, over-unders 38. And this game is a real snoozer. It makes me want to go to the 1 o'clock Panthers game here in Charlotte. I usually don't go to 1 o'clock games. I don't want to miss everything. But this slate of games, I'm not really feeling like I'm missing that much this week.
No, not too much. A lot of should be blowouts, but you never know any given Sunday. But I think we are going to see a low over-under. I feel pretty confident about this.
Yeah, somebody must really hate the Cleveland Browns in the scheduling office because they're coming back from London and they have to play on the road in a divisional opponent's house, the Steelers, and the Steelers are coming off of a bye. It's like all of that combined is a nightmare.
Dylan Gabriel goes from a true neutral environment in London to now in front of the crowd in Pittsburgh that I think might eat him alive.
Yeah, last week, he didn't do bad. He did his job in that loss. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He didn't throw any interceptions. He did his job, but I'm not going to either Aaron Rodgers or Dylan Gabriel for my quarterbacks this week. Are there any parts of this game that you do like?
Not too much that I'm looking for here. I think that Cleveland defense is just really impressive, and they're going to force Rodgers to have a very quick time to throw, so not really interested in DK. Looking back through, Pittsburgh was much worse against the quarterback position than I kind of remembered. We saw that week 1 game against Justin Fields, but even week 4 against Carson Wentz, he had a pretty good day, and then Drake May also had a pretty decent day, all over 20 points. So I think at 4,400, if you wanted a true punt play, it's there. I'm not going to be crazy enough to do it, but 4,400 is just cheaper than the other backups, so it doesn't quite make sense. And Sean Judkins looks good, but I don't really think it's his game here. Any other pieces that I didn't mention that you want to bring up?
The only one I would bring up is Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver in Cleveland. He had 7 targets last week, which is my interest, and he's 3,700. So any $3,700 player getting 7 targets, I'm interested in. He only caught 2 of them, though, which is kind of the concern. Maybe it's just timing that they've got to get worked out. I'm also a little bit interested in Harold Fanning, their tight end at 3,400. My interest is more on the Browns side with offense than on the Steelers side because the Browns defense does look good.
Yeah, I think Bond is a good point to bring up, just at 3,700. And the targets are pretty consistent. They've been ramping up every single week he's played. He went 1, 3, 4, and in the past 2 weeks, 6 and 7. So it's promising to see that for a rookie. and this team is looking for their future. So if they can feature him, then I think that's kind of your selling point. Maybe he gets in the end zone here.
Yeah, if you've got that perfect lineup and you've only got $3,700 left, maybe Isaiah Bond.
Yep, but besides that, that's kind of all the pieces I'm willing to take here.
All right, let's talk lineups. If you've got to pick one, what are you going with this week?
All right, I think my favorite lineup was none of the stacks extremely stood out to me, so I think there's a lot of blowouts here. I end up just going with a Sam Darnold. We talk about that value at 5,400 with JSN, and it's very clear where those targets going to. I do have that mini correlation with Ashton Genty and Calvin Ridley that I brought up. So I do actually like it, taking a chance on that game. And then almost in all my lineups, I've had Hunter Henry, just 4,300 for his involvement is too good to pass up. Then I plugged in Josh Jacobs, and I like the Browns defense, 2,500 for a very talented defense. They feel like they're always sitting there at one of the cheaper defenses, which I think is a mistake. And you know that they can make big plays. So I like the Browns defense. And then I was sitting there at like 5,300 and had Marvin Harrison Jr. and just kind of the general statement of it's never as bad as you think it is. And maybe it happens here.
Okay, I don't know about Marvin Harrison Jr. I can't buy into the Cardinals after last week. They're going to have to win me over. The Dolphins have won me over, but the Cardinals have not.
So what lineup is your favorite for this week?
I did 3 for this show, and I thought I knew my favorite, and now after talking about everything, I'm going to go with a different favorite. So I am going to go in on that Chargers and Miami game and think that we can get some magic there. So I'm going to go Herbert and stack him with Quentin Johnston, and then bring it back with Devon Achane on the running back side. And then we'll plug in Kyron Williams for the Rams in that Baltimore game, assuming he's going to get all of that work. If you liked, you could go Josh Jacobs there instead. I think maybe they're close to the same 7,800. Then I liked Devontae Adams. Obviously, you could swap him out with somebody else that's in. I've got a lot in. So I have got 2 pieces of that Rams game in Baltimore. Maybe I don't like that as well. Anyhow, and then Waddle as well in that Dolphins game at 6,100. I too plugged in Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry has got to be the value tight end this week at 4,300. And then I did use Isaiah Bond at 3,700 and the Browns defense at 2,500. The Browns defense, if you're going cheap, it's the Browns defense. And if you're going expensive, you got to pay up all the way to the Packers, which was the lineup that I thought was my favorite. But this is definitely a tournament stack here. You're just betting on that Chargers and Dolphins game to go kind of crazy.
I will say, as just an interesting strategy for those million makers for those huge tournaments, I think the Browns and Hunter Henry might be extremely targeted for their price, and there's a lot of pay up options. So it would be interesting to flip that and just get different on your defense and say, yeah, they get a couple sacks, but someone else gets a touchdown randomly or a kick return touchdown. I kind of like New England to get a kick return touchdown this week. So I think that's a good way to get different from the rest of the field and separate.
Yeah, good point. All right. That's all for the Week 6 main slate. Hope you enjoyed our game review. Hit subscribe, drop a comment with your favorite plays of the week, and don't miss the game in London again this Sunday morning.